Support comes from the Wiregrass Archives at Troy University's Dothan campus, identifying and preserving historical documents and photographs for research related to the Wiregrass region. More information at troy.edu/wiregrassarchives.
Being a teacher is not easy. I know. Understatement of the year. Teachers juggle test score pressure and parent expectations, not to mention a classroom of 20 to 30 young people who would rather be anywhere else. It is easy to get overwhelmed and miss the forest for the trees. That's why we're here. We're getting to the root of the issues facing educators today, connecting teachers with experts, and finding resources and solutions. Through conversations with our guests, and hopefully you as well, we'll all learn and grow together. From the little saplings to the wise old oaks, this is Growing the Forest and the Trees, Big Pictures and Everyday Realities, a podcast from the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences at Troy University. I'm Dr. Shirley Farrell, Gifted Education Program Coordinator, here with my co-host, Dr. Lisa Etheridge, a classroom teacher of 24 years and an associate professor in the Department of Teacher Education. How do children learn best? It's a question with as many answers as stars in the sky. You might be thinking of a quiet, organized classroom with a teacher instilling knowledge from on high. But our guest today says more teachers should embrace the mess. Matthew Monson is the Director of Operations, Maintenance, and Safety for Ozark City Schools. He has worked as a teacher, coach, principal, and assistant principal in his career. He'll tell us how controlled chaos might just be the key to unlocking students' potential. And we'll talk about artificial intelligence, or AI, and the most pressing challenges facing teachers today.
All right, we're going to start out, and just because of this day and time that we're living in now and in education, what do you see as the most pressing challenges schools are facing right now?
Sure. So locally, regarding schooling in Alabama, I'd say the biggest challenge we're tackling right now is the prevalence of cell phones and how to get our arms wrapped around that. You know, we got the cell phone law, which was designed to help teachers focus. In fact, it's called the Focus Act. It's designed to help kids focus on the instruction. But that is a multifaceted beast. That is not something where we have found in public school. You just pass a law and compliance is there and everybody's happy-go-lucky and we're cruising down the road. That's one of those things where we're really trying to combine compliance with the law, but also how to be an effective teacher. I mean, oftentimes in our professional settings too, we use a cell phone as a tool, not necessarily a toy. And so we're having to teach and show kids that, yes, this can be a tool as well. And we're also having to teach and show adults, especially our young teachers, how this can be used as a tool, but it must be done professionally with an end goal in mind. Another issue that we're facing right now in public ed in our great state is the idea that, you know, how do we teach a lot of these hot button political issues and topics? And how do we maintain neutrality and teach kids all while being respectful and cognizant of the myriad of different opinions that are kind of coming to school with those kids? And how do we as teachers draw that out to create discussion for our kids, all while not trying to overly influence them either way? I think those are two major issues that we're tackling right now.
I'd like to bring up another hot topic that
Yes, ma'am.
you didn't mention, but what about artificial intelligence, AI? It's here, it's going to stay, but how, as a school system, do you view the use of AI for teachers and then for students as well?
So, from a teaching standpoint, it really does open up your classroom to the world and vice versa. it can be such a powerful tool because you can throw in a query into Chat GPT or Claude or Gemini, and it will essentially do it all for you. But there's got to be some guardrails. You need to be sure that you understand what you're reading and what you're asking that query to do. As a young teacher, AI would have been dangerous for me because we all know young teachers hate and they stink at writing lesson plans because that is a nuanced activity. That is something that takes time to develop. And when I've seen young teachers say, "Well, I helped had Chat GPT write this lesson plan," and there's steps of the lesson plan that like you just can't do well in your classroom, that's a function of not knowing your clientele. So for teachers, yeah, it's a powerful tool, but you've got to be able to distill that tool through your own practice and stay and know, hey, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not. From a kid perspective, it is very, very scary. I'm scared of it from a parent perspective, as a parent of a 15-year-old son who tried to tell me last night I'm just going to use AI to write this paper, and I said absolutely not. But at the same time, I had to catch myself because he might be onto something there. So we talked about how you would help AI help you to improve it, not do it for you. Um, and I think that's a wide gulf that we're trying to get our arms wrapped around, both from a parental standpoint and from a teacher standpoint.
I agree. We have that issue at the graduate level in our courses. And I keep telling my students, you've got to know what it is before you know what it isn't. And you can't rely
Mm-hmm.
on AI because it's a machine who's doing what you told it to. And even if it has to make it up to give you the outcome you requested, then you've got to be able to critically think about it and know what is it that I can use, what is not accurate, what do I toss out and have to revise.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think that's therein lies its Achilles heel. If you have an end user that is not adept at identifying what is going to support or dissuade from their argument, if your end user can't identify that, then you're not getting an accurate representation of the power of the tool. You're just getting a regurgitated, query and set of facts that if you really scratch the surface with the person, not the machine, you're going to find out this person has no idea what they've actually gotten in front of them.
I totally, totally agree. It is a powerful tool, and I encourage my students to use it. But again, they have to have the guardrails put up, and they have
Absolutely.
to be taught how they can use it to improve their work, not just a copy paste and spit it back out.
Correct.
So I am going to shift gears because it is my understanding that you are now taking on some mentoring of roles in your school district.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I want to ask you, what do you think should be in place to help support new and early career teachers as they begin their careers as classroom educators?
Well, I really appreciate the idea that I'm getting to do this mentoring of young teachers because it's something that I feel like, in looking back as a young teacher, I needed. And I needed it not to come from teachers who also happen to be relatives because that I was not ready to hear that message from them. And so I think one of the biggest things that we have to consistently remind our young teachers and we need to work with them on is how to develop an appropriate relationship with your students that does not blur, and in fact it does not even come close to blurring those professional lines. Nothing hurts our profession more than when we see that young teacher crossing a professional line, and it is really easy to say that in theory this is what that looks like, but in practice it can get very, very tough. And if you're unsure, seek advice from a mentor or from an adult you trust. And that doesn't change. That message rings true for any area where we're trying to mentor. I think another great mentorship area is we have got to keep working with our young teachers on how to grow themselves professionally while not burning themselves out. We've all seen and we all know that young, great teacher who is on fire and is a great teacher and loves their job. And about year two, 2.5, right after Christmas, they hit the wall and they have a shift and a change, and they wind up leaving the profession. And there is not enough great teaching going on, and there is certainly um, not enough great places to be a great teacher right now, that we need to do our best as seasoned professionals to hold them in the profession. And one way we can do that is to support their growth professionally and personally. Which is why I'm really glad to see school systems starting to really lean into that employee happiness and employee mental health, as well as their pedagogical assistance.
Oh, that is great. So, on top of that, then, a lot of teachers come into education because they want to be creative. They want to, really pull the curiosity from the child, get them to explore and wonder and want to learn. How do you foster a culture where teachers feel encouraged to take risks and grow professionally?
So the leading way that I do that, and the way I always try to tell my teachers, is let's start with the standard. And I think a lot of times, from an administrative perspective, you had administrators and even veteran teachers who don't ever get past that. So I always remind them that the standard is the minimum. So let's figure out what the minimum looks like, and then let's expound from there. And I always remind young teachers that I want you to do whatever you can to spur interest in your kids. Do not care what the classroom looks like when I come in, because I'm the outsider. I used to hate walking into a room to do an observation and everybody's in a row and it's as quiet as the tomb and everybody's raising their hand, because the first time you ask a kid a question, they're going to tell on that poor teacher. Oh, I don't know. We don't ever do this. This is brand new. I would much rather see that controlled chaos from my outsider perspective. But yet, when you look at the systems in place, every kid knows what's expected. They're fully participating. They know what to do. They have freedom in their learning and freedom in their movement to attain that educational objective. That is what I want to see. And that is where I think, as professionals and leaders, we need to look at our young teachers and say, hey, be creative in your classroom. If it feels good for you and it helps you be your best self, I will adapt to you, because I am the outsider. You are in there with those kids each and every day. And if your data backs up what you're doing is being effective, we should look at them and hold them on a pedestal and say, look at this fantastic teacher who's being creative, whose kids are engaged. I don't care that her classroom's messed up every day and she has to spend 45 minutes cleaning it up. That's what education should be. I would much rather have that than let's all sit in our rows and raise our hand to speak. I never functioned well in those classrooms anyway. So that's my big take on that.
I agree. I agree. I had a principal who, I did pull out gifted classes. We were organized chaos to the nth degree. And she was a fabulous instructional leader. But for my classroom, she knew I was doing what was best for the students. She would walk in, take a few steps in, turn around and walk out because she couldn't stand it. She liked to see the rows and desk and worksheets, but she knew that wasn't best. So,
And see, I'm the exact opposite. I want to see the chaos, and I want to see and we say chaos tongue firmly in cheek. It is controlled. It is learning at its finest. Think about how we learn best as individuals. Rarely do we as individuals get it in a traditional learning model, by seeing it, saying it, speaking it. We have to experience all of those things at some point, and that gets to be messy. I want the mess. And I have found that the younger you are, the more, obviously, the more messy it has to be. But y'all, It doesn't matter if you're 5 or 18, making a poster, getting in the floor, doing some group work, doing a carousel activity. It works. I wish more teachers would do it regardless of age.
See, can I just,
Yes.
I want to stand up and shout and dance for your response because that is the way that I was taught to teach. And not that I'm knocking curriculum by no mean, because I know we have to have it,
Right.
but I call it the canned curriculum where they go through,
Yes.
it's scripted, it's the I do, we do, you do, and then turn to the workbook page and okay, we're going to complete problems, 2 through 12.
Right.
That is not cutting it.
No,
That's not
not
what I
no.
call true,
No.
authentic teaching.
It's not. Not only is it not cutting it, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but think about our students with exceptionalities. We say, okay, I do, you do, we do. They look around and say, I ain't gonna do, you ain't gonna make me do, and I can't do. And we still have a responsibility to those kids. So if we give them that latitude of that controlled environment to let them kind of flex their own muscles mentally and even physically and emotionally, that too is learning. And that too is going to help us all get to where we need to go.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Whenever I would do presentations and still do presentations on differentiation, one of the questions I ask the teachers from P through 12, preschool through 12th grade, what is the one grade level where, and I think this is more historical than current nowadays, but where students worked most of the day independently in centers learning? And everyone just kind of looks at me and I'm like, kindergarten? And yet, why with 12th graders, we don't have them working in stations, working together, learning through exploration and inquiry? Because you're going to get aha moments and remember it better.
Absolutely. I will never understand it. And I encourage all of our secondary teachers who are going to listen to this and who are going to hear this, embrace your inner kindergarten teacher. I know it's hard. None of us are in secondary because we could put up a great bulletin board. Trust me, we ran from that. But the primary teachers understand that multiple modality in teaching is the key. They get that, and as secondary teachers, we don't.
You, because you're used to being the sage on the stage. And it's so much
Which,
easier
yes,
to be off to the
yes.
side. Let them do the work. They work harder. It's their ownership of learning.
Correct. Correct. The sage on the stage is the worst form of teaching that you can teacher or teaching that you can experience or be, because you're stifling anybody else's response to what you're saying. They just sit there and take it, and if they don't agree with you, you'll never know.
All right. So, last question.
Okay.
Looking ahead, what do you see as the greatest opportunity for schools to better serve both students and teachers so that both are effective?
I think the biggest thing that I can see from moving forward for both teachers and students in schools and how we can help our society is we have got to continue to look at inclusivity. Um, we would love to be able to sit back and say, well, we have inclusivity in our schools. No, we have the foundations of inclusivity. We have a start on inclusivity, but I think there are layers to that, and including children and adults of all ability levels and all thought levels and opinions and experiential levels. I think that is what we've got to look at, and that doesn't just mean your gifted education and your special education. That also means your career and technical side, as well as your 4 year institution. I think one thing that we have struggled on recently is we're losing a lot of our CTE programs. And what I would love to tell all of our leaders is that, as the building leader, as the principal, Nobody cared if I was there every day. The school still ran. But if my CMP worker or my custodian wasn't there, we were in trouble. And I think we've forgotten that in education that there is dignity in all work, and our job as teachers is to help children find their voice. And when I say voice in this, it's find their work. Find how they're going to contribute to their community and contribute to society and build their sense of self. And that can happen if you're a rocket scientist or a janitor. And there's dignity in both of those.
Absolutely. I just want to say,
Yes.
preach on.
Absolutely.
And I say that having experienced both ends of the spectrum. I've worked with kids who are going to Harvard and Yale and the best and the brightest. And I've worked with kids who get up every day and they go work on a factory line. And you know what? I love them both equally, and I'm so proud of both of them equally.
Absolutely.
All productive citizens. We all have roles to play, different jobs. I come from a family of
That's right.
farmers, factory workers, and my dad was a traveling salesman, and his last job was a custodian. So you never know.
You don't.
Thank you for coming for part 1, and we will be in touch for part 2.
Absolutely. I am so happy to do it, and I appreciate the opportunities that y'all have given me to actually come speak to classes at Troy, to do this, to help potential teachers both at Troy and in the wider audience, and I really, really appreciate that. And I would encourage anybody out there who may be listening who hasn't decided on being a teacher, or you're working through a teacher ed program, I promise it is the most rewarding job you will ever do. It is not a job, it is truly a vocation, it is a calling. We need all of us to help today's kids become tomorrow's leaders. How about that?
That is awesome. That's a great
Yes.
way to end, as that's perfect.
Our guest today has been Matthew Monson, Director of Operations Maintenance and Safety for Ozark City Schools. We hope you'll share this podcast with the teachers in your life and give us a review or rating on the podcast platform of your choice. Growing the Forest and the Trees is a production of Troy Public Radio and the College of Education and Behavioral Sciences at Troy University. For Lisa Etheridge, I'm Shirley Farrell. We'll see you again next time on Growing the Forest and the Trees, the Big Picture and Everyday Realities.